Do you ever struggle with feeling like your artwork looks flat no matter how much color you add? You're not alone. Welcome to Sunlit Brushstrokes. My name is Jessica, and today we're going to be skipping color altogether and just focusing on value. Value is what gives your artwork depth, dimension, structure, and even visual impact that you can see in your artwork when you look at it from across the room. A value study in graphite pencil is helpful for artists of every level. When we set aside the color, the technique, the brush strokes, and just focus on our lights and darks, we can learn so much that then we can take into our final pieces of artwork. Today I will do a step-by-step drawing of this beautiful blossom, but I also have an outline in my Etsy shop so that you can skip the drawing part altogether and go straight to the timestamp where I start to do my shading. By the end of today's video, you'll have a beautiful piece of art and a greater understanding of values that will help transform your artwork. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, so let's go ahead and do the drawing first. If you want to skip the drawing, you can just buy the printable, traceable, whatever, and just follow along that way. That'll be fastest. But if you want some drawing practice, this is a great time to get that. And so what I'm going to do is kind of just figure out my placement. I want to kind of make sure I have room for everything. Here, I'm not going to be filling the whole page. I want this to kind of be a little bit like a little bit more of a long, narrow effect, kind of like what you see in the reference photo, the way I've cropped it. And so I'm kind of thinking I want the big blossom to kind of land somewhere like, maybe like here-ish. It's just a loose circle to kind of tell me approximately, like stay within that area, or otherwise I might get too big. And then I'm kind of seeing some of these little, like little stems here and some blossoms coming out this way. And I don't really want to come further than that. I want to kind of more or less, I'm already feeling like I'm going to get cramped. I'm going to try and keep myself more or less kind of within this area. So I'm just giving myself like a super loose sketch for kind of figuring out where I want to place things. So you can see I went very light. You can probably barely see that, but I just wanted to make sure I was going to fit on the page because, you know, sometimes you kind of go off the page. So that's just kind of give myself a little bit of a stop and a little bit of a guide. So now I'm going to work on this big blossom first. Center's here. I'm not going to draw all these little stamens or anything perfectly. I'm just doing a little scribbly thing just to kind of give myself the placement for where those are going to go. And I'm just doing something kind of loose and simple. So nothing crazy perfectionist. I'm going to try not to be perfectionistic. I know that's almost impossible here, right? But anyways, I'm never getting things perfect, but I still act like I could, and I never do. So let's go ahead. I've done one of these tiny little spaces between the petals, and then we have another little space. So there's going to be 5 of these little shapes. So let's just go ahead and draw them in there quickly. And there's one down here, and one over here. This one's kind of longer. And we got a short little one here-ish. And I will refine this. Like I say, you know, I have to refine things as I go. So let's go ahead, draw this one in here first. So just let's do it really quick and fast and loose, and then we'll come back in and refine it. Try and get the big shapes on here the way we want them to. So this shape, I'm doing it kind of in a sketchy way, and I'm just trying to get that overall circular kind of round look to this particular petal. Then I'll come over here and do this petal. It's kind of got a little bit of a wider section, and they overlap. It kind of gets wide there, and you can kind of see it. Something like this. I'm already outside my lines, aren't I? So that's okay. I'm going to make this the focal point, and I'll just, if I need to, I can always make these a little smaller. I think I'm not too bad. I just feel like it might be a little bit bigger than I was planning to go. But let's do this one. Kind of like so. We're going to come and deal with those like folds. Those are fun. We're going to deal with them in a minute. Just kind of get the overall shapes kind of here. Kind of comes down, kind of comes up. Something like so. I don't know. Talking and drawing at the same time isn't really the best. Use opposite sides of your brain, and it can throw you for a loop if you try and do it. Give yourself a nice little quiet space to draw. Okay, that shape kind of comes something like that, and it'll come a little bit more this way. And then this one, something like this. This one's feeling kind of big, kind of overlaps this one. you can see I'm just almost scribbling, sketching to get these on here. They're not perfect. Let's go ahead and refine things a little bit in a minute here. Actually, before I refine, I'm just going to kind of loosely draw where I want this other bud, or not bud, it's another little blossom. Do this little blossom here, then do this shape here. And we might as well just go ahead and draw this leaf in here that we can see, right? You can see that leaf there. Let's just go ahead and draw it. So I've got the kind of center line about there, and some of it's hidden behind some of these other little stems. So let's just do approximate. That's the leaf. Then we're going to come in here and do this blossom, and you can see it comes up and around, and it's kind of got an interesting shape here, kind of something like that. And then something, then we'll do this petal, and then this one's kind of overlapping it a little bit. All right, now we're going to just put a bud in here, kind of land something like so ish. And then we'll just kind of draw that stem there. So that's approximately where that bud's going to go. I see another little petal here from another blossom, but why don't we just add it? Another little bud here. Kind of overlaps this one. It's just a tiny little one though. Just kind of, they almost come side by side. And there's a little stem there, but the leaf is going to kind of cover it. So the leaf kind of comes from here, right? And it actually comes up even a little higher, and it kind of just starts to cover that little bud. So let's just quickly make sure we're happy with our stems and whatnot here. This one's kind of a little bit covered, the way I've got things drawn, but I'm not going to worry too much. This one, actually, this is where my problem is. I just looked at I was looking at my black and white photo when I was drawing it, and now I've gone back to the color one, which is what I'll put on this video while the drawing stage is on, because it's easier to draw seeing the colors. Okay, I'm gonna just draw that. That's so much easier with the color. And just do this little shape. So I'm gonna start refining things a little bit over here. Just kind of copying the little shapes that I'm seeing in this little bud. So I'm just looking back and forth from the photo to my drawing, from the photo to my drawing, and I'm trying to draw in these little tiny little shapes. Okay, this one I'm going to go ahead and do the little sepal leaves, and this kind of comes in here. You can see my placement's not 100% accurate, but go something like that. And this is where I actually want to take a little bit of artistic license as well with my leaves. I don't quite like the way all the leaves are landing along the bottom here, so I'll probably throw a few extras in. But let's just draw the one we can see first. I do like this one. And kind of is interesting the way that this one loops over. It kind of does something like this, hey? Kind of comes up a little narrower here. Kind of comes down a little bit here. Again, we're just copying what we see. And I can see a little line kind of running through here. This is where that center vein is, but we're not going to worry about every single little perfect vein in this. I'm just going to do them loose and non-perfectionistic. Okay, so we're going to have a bigger leaf right here that we can barely make out what it's doing. It's kind of got a little bit of texture to the edge of the leaf, and we're just going to call that good. Then I'm just going to throw in a few other leaves here. So this is where I'm taking artistic license. I'm going to throw a very tiny leaf in here, maybe another leaf in here, make this one a little bit folded. So this is again taking artistic license on that leaf. Up here there is one that I like. I'm going to add, kind of sort of see what I can see in the reference photo here and draw it. So something, I'm a little off. I need to come a little higher this way. Something like that. Not perfect, but we're just going to go with that for now. And then I'm going to just draw in a really loosely, kind of there's a little bud back, or a little blossom back here. I'm just going to go ahead. I'm not going to pay much attention to the overall shapes. This is going to be really faded out as I actually go to do the, the details. I'm not going to do a lot of detail back here, but let's just quickly draw a little flower back here. And I am being very loose and non-perfectionistic for this. Maybe we'll just put a loose bit of a bud or flower here, so we can kind of see one. Again, we don't need to be too persnickety here. all the background, I'm going to kind of let it get loose and less detailed. So let's work on the part that matters. So I'm just going to quickly do these little folded shapes on our petals. You can see we have a nice folded shape here. Comes down. This one barely. You just see a little fold along the top. And then it kind of comes behind here. So this one comes in front. Then it comes down. Okay, let's go. Has an interesting fold on this one, doesn't it? Something like that-ish. You can kind of see it kind of continues, the fold kind of continues along the bottom edge there. Or else it's just the, yeah, I think there's a slight fold. I was like, is it just the way the light's hitting it, or is there a slight fold? I think there's a slight fold. Okay, then there's a fold here, comes down, kind of comes like so, and something like this, and kind of wraps around like so. Something like that. Okay, and then we have a nice fold here. Okay, this is just a dark shadow here, so I'm slopping my shapes a smidgen bit. But I'm also being way persnickety for you guys, so sorry. I don't want to lead you all into perfectionism. Okay, let's go ahead like this and draw that like so. Okay, I think I'm happy enough with how things are looking right now. We can, as I said, we can refine things as we go to shade. But the purpose of this lesson today is really, I want to focus on the values. Yes, we talked about shapes, but what I really want to do is just focus on lights versus darks. And so let's move on to that right now. I went ahead and converted the photo now to grayscale, so it's just black and white, going to be way easier to work with. And what I want to do is just talk for a quick minute about my tools and my pencils. So what I have here is just a scrap of paper, and we're going to do a quick sample of our pencils. And I've got a variety. I'm not using all of these today, but I just want to share with you kind of how graphite pencils work. Now, when I did my drawing, I used my HB pencil. An HB pencil is your normal drawing pencil, the same pencil you use every single day. This is just a normal drawing pencil, HB. Then we have on this side of the spectrum, we have H pencil. So this is a 2H, and it is a harder lead than the HB. So if I just go ahead here, do a quick scribble with HB pencil. Let's just label this quick. And do a quick scribble with my 2H pencil. I don't know if that shows up on the camera too well. Let me zoom in so you can maybe see. You can probably tell that's a little lighter. It's a harder lead, so less of the lead comes onto my paper when I do the scribble. Okay, so we've got those. Now we have all of these are B pencils. So we have a 2B, a 4B, a 6B, an 8B. These actually get softer the higher you get up in numbers, so they're all B's. Actually, let me zoom out again so you can see the names on here, right? So 2, 4, 6, 8. And I'm just going to drag them down here and do a little scribble with each of these. So we're going to do 2B, scribble. You can maybe see it's getting a little darker. You can feel it when you go to use this pencil, that as I climb up these numbers and get higher in the numbers, they are getting softer. The pencils are making a darker mark on the paper. And they're getting almost more like a pastel or something. And then we have our 8B. Ooh, super soft, and I broke it. But you can see I'm getting nice and dark. So my goal today is to use more than just my HB pencil. You don't need all the numbers. What I might do, let's just move these out of the picture. And let's work with the 2B. And I don't know, maybe we can even just use the 6 and the 8. If you want, you can use the 4. I'll see if I can just use these 3 for shading. You can see how far you can get with the HB pencil with shading, but you will find you're not going to get as dark. So you'll want to have something, you know, maybe the 6 or an 8B. It's just going to help you get darker values. If you have a range, that's great. You can just know that as you work up higher and higher in those numbers, like 2, 4, 6, 8, or whatever numbers you have in between. Like I say, this is not an exhaustive line of graphite pencils by any means, but as you get higher, you're going to get a softer lead and darker values. So just wanted to mention that, because sometimes that can be a little bit confusing about pencils. It's like, well, what are all these different kinds of pencils for, and what do they do? So let's go ahead and just maybe start coloring with our 2B, and then I'll let you know as I try and get into these darker colors. But I'm going to start with the 2B. And I'm gonna just go ahead, and I'm almost gonna do this as if I am coloring, okay? So I'm gonna go and actually talk about tools quick too. Sorry, back that up. I do have my kneadable eraser. This is actually really handy because you can, of course, as you know, make a nice little, bring it to a little tip or shape it into whatever shape you need to do your erasing. And it can even work kind of as a tool, right? Because if you want to lift things, make them wider, this is perfect. Then I have an eraser that's more like a pen. And it's just, you can see when I push this out, it's just a long skinny eraser, but it's perfect for doing details. So I've got that, and that's a Tombow. And then I have blending stomps. These are basically just made of like paper. This is a new one, or almost new. This one has been used, but I do like them when they're dirty because you can almost use it as like a coloring tool as well. But if you don't have one of these, no worries. You can use kind of a combination of a piece of Kleenex or tissue. So I've got that, and I will use that today. And then I also have some Q-tips. And you could use those kind of like a blending stump. They're not quite the same, but you can blend with them. So let's just go ahead and use our 2B. You could use even your HB pencil at this stage, but I'm gonna very lightly and softly go ahead and just fill in these petals here where that's very light gray. So I'm just looking at the reference photo, and I'm using a circular motion. You can see I'm holding further back on the pencil. That's allowing me to get lighter pressure than if I was holding up close. Holding up back is going to help me a little bit with my pencil pressure. And I'm going to increase the pressure down here where I see that things are getting a little darker. So I'm going to go around, just quickly fill these in the same way. And I'm just doing the kind of the inside. I'm not doing the outside of these right now. And I'm just putting this graphite on here using a circular motion. So since this is pretty straightforward and I'm kind of using the same amount of pressure, what I'll do is I'll go fill this in with medium pressure, and I'll speed the camera up as I do that, and then I will slow down where you can see I'm like making my shadows a little more intense. Actually right here, I will even just start with a smidge more pressure, but I'm just coloring basically. You're gonna notice over here that there is a little bit of a pattern happening. I'm not going to be super precise, but I am paying attention to that pattern. It's being created by the stamen, I think, above, casting a shadow down. And so we kind of have an interesting little pattern down here. So just pay attention to that. All right, I'm going to put a little heavier pressure now right here because, as I said, there's a little bit of a darker shadow here. Gets a little bit darker behind here. And come in here a little bit. And let's go ahead and use that blending tool just so you can see how this is going to work for us. So I'm going to try it with a piece of Kleenex first. I'm just going to roll it up a little bit. And you can try with this, but these are super cheap at art stores, so you can definitely find a blending stomp pretty easily in an art store. But I'm just going to show you, you can use a circular motion and just blend your graphite with your Kleenex, or you could even take a Q-tip and be very careful. I'm going to use a circular motion again, and you can blend it that way. You have a little less control in some ways with these two tools. This one, because it does come to a point more like a pencil, you can kind of use it like a pencil. So it is easier, not essential, but easier to work with. But let's go ahead and just do a little bit of blending still with a Kleenex because everybody has that. And do that a little bit more down here. And if I've gone too dark in any areas, that's where my kneadable eraser is going to come in super handy. And I can see in a few places, I'll probably want to use that. It gets a little trickier to use this here, so try the Q-tip. And like I say, if you have access to a blending stomp, take advantage of it. All right, and so this is where you can see, if I use my kneadable eraser, I can go, okay, I can just gently, softly lift a bit in some places where I see I've gone a little bit darker. And then I can always work back in with the blending stomp. Just get it just so. You can see a little area here. I can lift it with the kneadable eraser. And this is where, if you look closely at my drawing here, you'll see I've kind of got outlines I've drawn a little bit heavier. So I'm going to blend those out as well and blend them almost into my shadow area. Now, if I've gone too dark, again, I could lift, but I don't feel like I'm too dark. So I'm just going to use the blending stomp right now because I feel like that's probably the easiest option for blending these out with a little bit more control. But let's just do that gently. And this is where you can ask yourself, do you see a strong, hard line on your reference photo? If not, and you usually don't, you just have to ask yourself, how come I can see that there's a fold here, say? How come I can see this is separate from here? It's because this is a lot lighter here, this is a lot darker here, and you can take the opportunity. This is a nice thing with a dirty blending stomp. It's already ready to go. You can kind of just use that to draw where you do see shadows up here. You can actually use your blending stomp to create shadows, and you can also just go back to your pencil, and I'm gonna push this a little bit in here. You can't really see a huge separation in this area, the top fold compared to this lower section, but I'm gonna push it by putting a little more color or a little bit more pencil there, and then just bring this down. You see how that kind of brings that and makes it pop. So that's that shape. If you're enjoying today's video and you'd like to take your art to the next level, I invite you to join my newsletter, where you'll be the first to learn about any new workshops or classes that I offer in the future. You can find a link for that in the description below. Now let's get back to today's video. And you can decide how you prefer to work at this point. Do you want to get all your, medium values on here first, then come back and do the darks? Do you want to get one section of your painting finished? You might want to do that. That can be a helpful, I'm calling it a painting, it's a drawing. It can be helpful to get one area finished. And so what I'm suggesting we do is choose one of our darkest sections. So let's choose one of these little shapes here, and let's get it super dark, because it's going to give us a little bit of an idea of how dark we want to get with our darks. So I'm just going to fill these in, or at least this one for now. And you can with even these super dark areas, you can blend them if you want to. So we have an idea. That's our darkest dark. We're also going to get very dark down here. So we could use that as our guide, and then just take yourself a pencil, whichever one you feel most comfortable with for doing details. And you can decide, do you want to do details right now or details at the end? So I'm going to just kind of finish this particular petal so that you can see kind of how I would go about doing the details. And I'm looking at my reference to kind of see where these little, I guess you could say they're like veins or little lines through the petal are running. And I'm just doing approximate as I come to the edge, because there's a lot of them. They kind of branch out. It's almost like they kind of come branching out from the center of the flower, and then they kind of come this way, right? Kind of almost like that to the two sides of the petal. So we're just going to draw those in really lightly. And I don't like what I just did there. It was a little bit wonky. Oh well. Then I can come in. I could erase that if I really hate it, or I can just come in if I want to soften these a little bit. If they're just a little bit strong, I can come in with my blending stomp and just use it almost like a pencil and just kind of lightly kind of draw those in. You can even use a thinner pencil if you want, like your HB, to get some fine details. Like I say, I'm not 100% happy with how I did some of these shapes, but you can see, you can just lift them out and then blend things back in with your blending stomp. So super easy to fix. And just come and do this little section here. Lift it a little bit. Okay, so you can kind of get an idea of what a single petal is going to look like when it's done. I may even find as I go, I need to push this one vein just a little bit more, this one line. It seems a little bit like it could be a bit darker still. And so this is just going to give you an idea of kind of what I'm aiming for at the end. However, what I want to do is get all of my big shapes correct first. In other words, get my lights how I want them, the darks how I want them. Then we're going to do details, okay? So that's just to give you an idea of what we're going to aim for, but let's get all the big shapes on here first. So the way that I want to fill this in is not really the most refined way of doing this. Some people will come in here first with their lighter pencils and kind of get things a little bit, I don't know, more refined. And that is a nice way to work, but I am playing it lazy today. I am going to work with my two darkest pencils, the 6 and the 8B, and I am just going to vary my pressure fill this in, and then when I feel like I need a little bit of more like detail or refinement, I'll switch back to the 2B. So this is going to be a fast, sketchy finished product. If you want to go more slowly and work with the finer pencils and get more detail, you definitely can. Actually, to show you what I mean about the finer details or the finer tips on these pencils, like the harder pencils, of course, sharper pencils has an influence too. But this cat, these are examples from when I was teaching, so some of them aren't even fully finished. They're a bit rough, but you can see the detail that's here from using a pencil that was like a harder lead, a nice sharp tip, and it allowed me to get detail. Same with the dog fur. You can kind of see that on the squirrel a little bit as well. And this one, again, could do with some blending in the background, but you can see definitely some nice fine fur happening. And so, yeah, with all of these, I would just say, you can see I was using a harder pencil and I got a lot more detail. And we're not going to be doing this sort of a thing today, but these are just examples of when I would choose to use a harder pencil and get finer detail. And the other thing I'm going to do is I have a piece of paper, a scrap of paper I'm going to use to put under my hand, because as you know, with graphite, you can end up picking things up and smearing them around. So to prevent that, I'm going to use this piece of paper. And yeah, I'm just going to come in here and just go to town, kind of scribbling. And then I'll come back with my blending stomp and kind of get things smoothed out. So I'm just going into this particular shape. This petal is quite dark. So I'm just going to fill it in with this color or with this pencil. And this one a little bit less so. It's a little less dark. So I'm really just focusing on kind of getting some basic values blocked in. Let's get a little darker down here. This little shape here is nice and dark. Like I say, I'll do some blending. So this is Lazy Man's way of doing graphite today. I'm going to do some of these veins. So I'll throw in some veins here. Okay, it gets a little darker here, so I'll just refine these. And like I say, I'm just going to go to town, almost scribbling, and just do this until I'm happy with it. See a little shape back here. I'm going to fill it in because I think it adds something to the painting or to the drawing. Fill this in. And then I'll do some of these, again, these creases, folds, kind of veins. Just get that linear movement that we see in the reference photo. Slopping a little bit right here, I'll just use that. And definitely if I see areas that are just a nice solid shadow shape, like right in here, I'll just fill that in with the shadow shape. So I'm basically just using the reference photo as kind of my guide for how light or dark that I need to go. And it's really just like coloring. And my coloring, I do focus on kind of the direction of my coloring as far as getting, as you can see, the little creases, folds, just kind of get that movement that we do see in the flower. But like I say, this is a fast, sketchy kind of piece, just to get our focus on getting our values in here and maybe a little bit less on refining our technique. This is an interesting shape, and I will pay attention to these little, I guess you could say, again, the movement that we see happening in the fold here, or the way that the petal is kind of rolled over, like kind of like that. And I'm simplifying a little bit as well. See a little bit down here. Some of these small shapes, I'm not going to really be too particular about them. And I'm still using the number 6. It's just allowing me to really get nice and dark really fast. Then I see a nice shape over here. All right, why don't we go ahead and also do these tiny little shapes in here. Just get them on there. pay attention as well if you want to kind of work around, like in this one, for instance, I can see one of those little stamen coming out like that. So you can work around that, just draw that in there and then, you know, just kind of fill it in around. So I'm kind of paying attention to the stamen a little bit in some of these shapes, just so that I don't lose them. We can kind of lift them out with an eraser, but it's easier in this case not to get them too dark. You can see you'll have to sharpen your pencil more often. Let me just grab my pencil sharpener. Because these softer leads, they get dull faster. I really like the Staedtler pencil sharpener. I thought I would just show you it since I am using it, because I have had people ask me what I use for my pencils and how I get them so sharp. This is the one I use, usually the single hole. And the nice thing about it is that you can replace the inside, like the blade part. You just open it up. Let's not. This is kind of an extra lesson inside the lesson. Sorry, just show you really quick. This part here, you can unscrew those 2 screws and pop this part out and replace it with a new one, like so. And so, yeah, it's perfect. You can have this nice clean tub, but you can also easily and inexpensively replace the blade. So these are my favorite pencil sharpeners. Just a little tip. And since I'm at it, you know what I'm even going to do is use very, very, very soft pressure and just draw in some of these shadows. Probably most of the way I will end up just using the blending stomp for these softer shadows rather than even using my pencil. Like I say, I'm doing loose and sketchy kind of graphite work today. Let's just refine that a little. And now I'm going to go nice and dark in some of these leaves. And once again, I'm just coloring them circular motion more or less, unless I decide, you know what, I want to, you know, create, you know, texture, something like I did here, right? But with this, I'm just filling this in, and I could get a little bit of detail in here, but this one's interesting, actually. I have to look at it in the colored version for a quick minute just to see what's happening here. I'll just do the serration. I'm not getting a perfect leaf here. I'm just like, you know what? This is in the background. It's not, I don't think, too essential. So I'm just trying to fill it in quickly and loosely. And then this is where, of course, I'm taking artistic license because I added these ones here. So let's just fill them in. Again, I want to go nice and dark down here and maybe kind of just create a little bit of a effect that this is kind of folded over, something like that. So just invented that one. All right, let's fill this one in as well. And I'm going to use a little less pressure. I'm going to make this one just a smidgen lighter. Maybe we'll go darker right where it's meeting the edge of the one in front. So this petal, or this leaf here, sorry. So I'm really just, this is kind of, I'm thinking the same way I would think while I'm painting, but if you're struggling with just the brush technique or whatever, just getting used to the watercolor and you're comfortable with a pencil, you're going to be able to learn so much just by doing this project. And you don't have to worry about getting your brush work just so or perfect. This is just working on values and getting the values kind of figured out and how you want to take a little bit of artistic license while you're at it. Okay, let's do this one. There's a nice shadow. I really like this. So I'm going to do that nice and dark. This section kind of medium. And this one is a beautiful dark leaf back here. So I might let it have a little bit of light as it comes up to this side, maybe, so that it's defined, separates these two from each other. So I'm just using a little lighter pressure, and you'll see this. It's going to look way smoother when I grab the blending stomp and blend it out. Right now it's just like, looks dumb, but that's okay. We're just focusing on getting our values nice and deep and dark, and it's a value study. Okay, let's get dark in here and dark along this edge here. Maybe create a little bit of bumpiness to this leaf. Ooh, don't like what I did there. Don't like how I outlined that. Oh well. We'll just blend that in a little bit like so. Okay. Maybe we can even give it a little bit of a, almost like the effect of a vein in the center. And then this one, I'm going to use medium pressure just to fill it in quickly, and then I'll come and do those veins quick as well. Let's do the veins first so we don't lose them. So kind of like so. You can see my pencil is getting almost like flat again. So it's a little bit of a chisel, which is fine. I'm not minding it for this. And I'm not using my handy little paper, so I'm smudging, but let's get this on here. I'm not crazy about how I handled that last line here. This was kind of the center vein. Don't like how I did that. It's a little bit off. Oh well. I'm going to erase that. It's really bugging me. Because it's really not that dark in the photo, is it? It's kind of a little bit just there, but barely. So filling in the rest in with kind of medium pressure, and this is definitely darker, this section here, so I want to make sure that it stays darker. And then this little bud is nice and dark, kind of where it meets the leaf in front of it. So I'm just going to go nice and dark on this bud. And fill that in. Again, I'm being pretty sloppy, pretty lazy. Let's get a little bit of shadow on this one as well. Make a nice dark stem there. We are getting there, and I'm just going to put a little more dark along the edge of this leaf. I feel like it's definitely, I look at it, it's like, oh yeah, definitely some darkness there. And anywhere else that I want to go, definitely up here. This I want to push behind. So I'm just going to darken this, and I'm going to just take total artistic license for this background area up here. And I'm going to kind of use the reference photo as a guide, but I'm not even going to follow it exactly. I'm just going to maybe add a bud here or a couple petals. Let's go something like this. I can kind of see, it almost feels like there's, you know, you can see part of it when it's cropped. You can see part of this little petal back here. I'm just going to lightly draw that in there. And maybe a stem as well. So you can see, I'm not following these details very precisely back here. I'm just like, you know what, just get some random shapes in here that look like petals. So you can kind of do what you want. You can even just do some random little leaves. You could do that. You know what? I'm going to do that in some places. I'm also going to fill in some of these gaps because I want this flower to pop. And so I'm going to come in here, and you probably are noticing this is making no sense right here, is it? This needs to kind of come a little bit like so. And let's darken this a little bit, make a kind of medium value back there. This is a really good way to practice doing backgrounds as well, and because you can kind of just take a little bit of artistic license and decide, oh, how does this work? This is a good way to do a value study for a background, to decide where you want your lights and your darks to be. I'm going to drop this petal down a little bit. So I made it look like, by darkening a little bit of the background, I made that look like it's come down a little bit. And I might even lift this leaf a little as well, because as you can see in the reference photo, it does come up a little bit higher and there's less of a gap. And I don't know that we need the gap to be as strong as what I've drawn it. So I'm just going to tweak it a little bit. And in here, we have a nice kind of dark background. So I'm just using medium pressure to kind of almost fill in the background. So let's just do that quick here. The main thing we want to just be able to focus on is that we are indeed not losing our shapes. And so in this case, I'm like, how come I feel like I'm losing that leaf? You can clearly see if you look in the reference photo, it is a little bit darker along this edge, isn't it? So we're just going to go ahead and do that. I'm darkening a little bit on these veins, or kind of above the veins. I'm going to be blending this as well. It's going to help. But looking at this reference photo, I can more clearly see in the black and white version where I want to go a little darker here. And this little one needs a little stem. And it really isn't a dark line there. I'll just lighten it a bit. The stem is lighter than the background, so that's how we see it. So just kind of fill the background in a little bit. And this has a slightly bigger shadow over here. So just define that a little bit. I think this is just a really good exercise if you're ever struggling with backgrounds or kind of doing things a little more abstract and taking artistic license. Doing it in pencil can be just a really fun way to explore and see what works for you, what you're happy with. I should probably do this a lot more often. All right, in here, I want to define this a little bit, get nice and dark, and then bring it kind of more to our medium value. So I'm kind of creating a gradation. I went heavier in here, and then I'm working my way lighter, and I'll blend that out with the blending stomp or Kleenex, one or the other. A little bit darker in here, blending it out. This is not bad here. I'm just, like you say, or like I say, I'm just scribbling, doing a lot of scribbling today. And I'm going to darken this and let that kind of have a lighter line there to define that little leaf. Let's see where else I want to go. I do want to have a bit more shadow right here, so I'll just darken that. And in here, we can create a few little, almost like scribbly dots, and I'm going to kind of use my blending stomp to get things looking better. So I'm not being overly perfect there, just getting a little bit of detail in. And where else do I want to go? I'm going to blend things pretty soon here, and that'll help me decide as well what else I need to still do. I think I'm going to darken right along in this area. I think that would help. Just a little bit like so. And then it can kind of get lighter as it kind of moves out from us. A little bit here. Some of these areas here, I'll probably just kind of gently kind of define the background. I'm going to put a little bit of background in here to make this petal pop a little bit. See how I'm doing that? And like I say, I'm going to be blending. This is just super sketchy. Come in here a little bit, define things. Really just asking myself, where are my light areas or light petals, and I want them to pop. I'm going to put some dark behind them, and then when I see areas that are dark, I very well might just leave the background light behind them. So like down here, I don't necessarily want to do a lot with my background. I'm just kind of letting it be. Whereas where I want things to pop, like along here, that is where I am taking a little bit of artistic license and going darker. This is going to be a darker petal right here, so I could go a lot darker with it and then have lighter background around it. Where else can I go? I'm going to take care of this little one. I'm just going to just very, very lightly fill it in and maybe go a little bit darker, come closer to the focal point here. Just fill this in. A little bit of shadow here. And then in here, this is going to be beautiful. If we go dark here, we can create a little bit of something to have pop, right? Again, darker, dark against light, light against dark. And that's how we make kind of everything kind of pop up, like the lights and things kind of come forwards or get pushed back based on how we're putting these lights and darks. Put a little bit of darkness in here as well. And this is where you can kind of create a few extra leaves if you want to. Kind of have things kind of look like there's a leaf there or not a leaf there. Kind of vary your background if you feel the need to. Might do a few small details here. I don't know how refined to be, but I've gone a little darker there. It will draw a smidgen bit of attention to itself with that darkness, but let's define the edge of this one a little bit as well. Okay, this is bugging me here, so I'm going to just push this back a little bit. Maybe push it all the way. Push it like that, and then this one back here can have a little bit more dark. Basically, we're just pushing things back by darkening where the edges are meeting. And like I say, I don't want to have a whole lot in the background here. I could maybe put a leaf, invent a leaf. yeah, I'm actually kind of happy with this so far. Like it's, to me, I feel like it's a nice kind of composition. So I'm gonna just grab my blending stomp. You could, like I say, use these other tools. I would recommend a blending stomp though, because it does make your life easier. So I'm gonna go ahead and just do some blending. And I'll have my kneadable eraser handy as well, because I'm not too fond of what's happening up here. Let's just get this particular one finalized. This is just a bit strong and it's bugging me. Is it bugging you? It's bugging me. Let's just try and soften. It does get kind of lighter as it comes to the top. This is where actually the tissue would actually work okay, just to kind of do a little bit of soft circular blending. And then it does get quite a bit lighter up here. So kneadable eraser, lift that out a little bit. And it does have a bit of a dark edge, doesn't it? You can kind of slightly see that. So I'm gonna create that like so. And I'll do a little bit of just almost like pick in the center of this, nothing too much, just because again, I'm mostly happy with it. This, I feel like I made that a little too narrow, didn't I? Let's try and use a stronger eraser to kind of lift that. It looks kind of dumb. Kind of like so. I think that's working. Actually, I don't even mind it so much like that. I almost don't even need to do anything else to it. Let's see where else. This kind of the outside of these, we definitely have to still do. And yes, I need to still come in and do some veins. We'll get details in there after. The details can come at the end. Lift a little bit. Definitely it's more dark on the inside of this fold, like in here. And I do have enough graphite on my blending stomp that I can do this. If you don't have enough graphite on a blending stomp or whatever you're using to blend with, you can always make yourself something. Well, you could come here and pick up the graphite from over here. Or you can just like scribble on a scrap of paper and then rub your stomp through that, and that will allow you as well to pick up some darker color. And I don't like the outline here, of course, so I have to kind of massage that out. And I clearly have a light shape that I'm kind of slopping here. So grab the eraser again, and then back to the graphite and refine that shape a little bit. Yeah, happier with that. And it gets nice and dark in here, but I am getting a rather soft line instead of a hard line. So I'll just clean it up with this and try and get the edge a little bit cleaner. You know what I need to do? I need to grab I don't like using this. So this is one for my colored pencils. Generally better to have your own like little brush for the graphite because it's, you know, messier, dirtier, whatever. But I was lazy. I just grabbed that one this time. Okay. A little bit of shadow in here, just a little tiny touch. Yeah, it's coming. And then I see a little tiny bit of like kind of linear, these veins or whatever, a little bit of texture there. So I'm just going to blend that, then come over here into this nice shadow, get nice and dark here. And I feel like there actually is more dark in the shadow maybe than I even have. Like right here, I could probably push that shadow a little bit more. This is my 8 that I have right now. I don't know why the 6 would have been sufficient. But anyways, picked up the 8 because it was closest. Probably better to pick up the 6. I think the 6 would have been a bit better for this section, but it's okay. It's not a big deal. I didn't go too heavy. It's just kind of there. Okay, I'm going to refine these a little bit as well right in here. Get my shapes just a little bit more refined. Kind of along the edge here as well. Okay, something like that. And then I have an outline here that's clearly not there, so let's push that like that. And let's do the 6 again. There's a little bit of shadow right here. Blend that in. Okay, I'm just gonna sharpen my pencil. Now we'll use the blending stump and just softly kind of blend this. My blending stump is almost too dirty. I almost should use the new one for this because I'm like almost making too big of a mess. So it's good to have more than one of these. You can have a clean one and a dirtier one. It's okay-ish. It's not perfect, but can always dab a little bit down here. I don't want to lose my lights. Like I've got some beautiful whites in this flower and I don't want them to disappear on us. So just try and refine that a little touch. And what else do we need? I think I'm gonna kind of clean this up a little bit too. If you ask why you can see the difference between this front petal here, or whatever, the fold, versus what's behind it, it's really because the top, it's light along this edge. There's no dark line there. So make it so there isn't a dark line there. Okay, let's come up here now and just blend that little shadow. And we can actually see a little bit of kind of linear something happening in here, can't we? So we'll put that on there. We will still get those veins on there eventually. I'm going to do them at the end because they're kind of just like the final icing on the cake, just the very final. So let's blend this out. It's nice and dark in here. And then in here, it's dark along this top edge. Almost could. Yeah, okay. Now we have to ask ourselves again, how can we see this shape? This shape is kind of just a bit darker along here. There's really not the line there that you can see on mine. It's actually a little tiny bit darker in here. Not as dark as I've just gone. A little bit darker there, and then it's light along that edge. So let's just use the kneadable eraser and look at that. We can kind of carve some more of our little veins with this. I like that. Let's do that. Or in this case, some of the shadow shapes. I'm not loving what I've got there, but I'm not wanting to be overly persnickety. Let's lift a little bit right there and then come darker again. I felt like I was just getting a little bit too dark. Again, I'm getting perfectionistic, but okay. I was happy with what I had up here. It could almost be darker, maybe. Just darken this a little bit. Not bad. Let's leave it be. Yeah, I'm mostly happy, I think, with this main center flower, besides the fact it needs some veins still. I'm just going to blend these a little bit. Get them nice and soft looking. Okay, now I think we can kind of do all this background. It's coming along fairly well. So I'm just going to fill this in, just blend it a little bit. And in these cases, you could sometimes use the tissue if you feel like your blending stomp is giving you more texture than you want. This can actually remove texture a little bit more, I think. But I'm going to go ahead and I think I'll stick with the blending stomp as much as I can, just because it is, in my opinion, almost easier to work with. And in this case, this little shape here actually is a little bit darker than the rest of the flower, which is why we can see it. So we'll darken that. And do we want to refine it a little bit with a pencil, just to, yeah, maybe just a little bit. Again, this is out of the focal point, so don't make a big deal of it, Jessica. Okay, try something like this. I'm not going to make a big deal of the shadows that are here. There is some shadows in here, but again, this is kind of, I want to push it behind and make it not as strong. So we're just going to just do a little bit of scribbling on top of it to kind of just push it back there. It's not important. Okay. Maybe I'll just separate these petals just a little bit better here. Alrighty, let's just blend this out. So I'm going to come in here, using a little bit of a circular motion now with my blending stomp. Okay, I'm going to get in these details here. And I might just use my pencil to refine things as I go, where I want things to pop a little bit more. Use my pencil, make them pop. And if my pencil is making things look a little too rough, you can also be a little more gentle with your pencil and do a little bit more of like a circular motion, like you see I'm doing here, with just like lots of tiny circles rather than really aggressive line work. And so that'll also help give that a softer look without having to just use the blending stomp and obliterate your edges, because I was getting, well, like the edge was getting a little mushed there. So I'm just going to do some of this with my pencil so that it doesn't mush away the petal of the blossom in front. Okay, let's do a little bit of this. I'm going to use the side of the stomp a little bit now. Again, circular motion. Down here, you could, if you really want to blend things out, this is where the Kleenex might give you a better result. You can kind of do like large circles, like what I'm doing here. But you can also, if you feel like that's a little too rough, you can do this, and this tends to give you even a smoother kind of finish. See how that's smoother? So this Kleenex is nice for that, but it's definitely not as nice when you want to go into the details. That's where you want the blending stomp. And come up into here. Okay, liking that. So let's blend these little leaves out now. And do this one. So I'm going to come in here, blend that out. Just almost let this kind of fade in here, I think, a little bit, maybe. Let's just do that. And also, I want to make sure that I don't mush this into this. I want this one to pop out again, right? Almost losing that. It's okay. It can get lost right here. Okay. Do I want that lost right there? You can, if you don't like the way that I just kind of smushed that petal out, you can always just kind of do a little bit of this. Kneadable eraser. And kind of go like so. Might need to use, oh, it's working. I was gonna say I might need to use a little bit of Kleenex there, but it's okay. All right, let's do this one. Try and not go too heavy so I don't lose my lighter darks. Then I come a little heavier up here. And refine this over here. Okay, let's do this one. So I think you probably have the idea what I'm doing. I don't know if you want to hear my whole commentary as I carry on with this, or if you'd rather just, well, you can fast forward it yourself if you want. If you're like, okay, this is we already know what this girl's doing. You can fast forward it. You kind of are seeing the point and you can see what I'm doing. I want to refine this. You can see I just lost that. And in this case, I'm going to go darker here just to clean that up, make it more refined. And I'm also going to make sure that in this area here on the leaf, it's going to get darker. So I've done that line and then I'm fading that out. So the leaf is definitely darker than the petal. So go lighter pressure in this area here. And even, like I say, a cleaner blending stomp could be the solution as well. If you're losing your lights, I can come in my lights with this cleaner blending stomp. And then more less pressure. Or the other thing, actually, you can kind of clean this as well. You can use sandpaper if you really need to do a good clean. But you know what? You could even just take, let me just grab a paper towel around here for my watercolor. You could just take this and you can kind of just like even just kind of clean some of the graphite off. You don't want to like clean it perfectly well, but if it's just, you know, more graphite on there than you want, just do something like that. You could even do it on paper, just anything that can kind of remove a bit of the graphite from your blending stomp. Okay, liking that mostly. I feel like I still got darker than I wanted to. So back to this kneadable eraser. Just kind of lightly lift. I'm making a mess and that's okay. I can refine it again with my blending stomp. I just feel like I'd rather get almost too light because I feel like I was too dark. I really like the way this leaf had some light in it. So just lifting more than I need because going in more carefully was leaving me with goofiness. So I'll just do that and then back with the blending stomp just gently. So do a little bit of circular. Yes, happier with that. Not quite so crazy dark. Yeah, I think that's better. What do you guys think? Did I go too light? Put a little more dark in there. Isn't this fun? Have you ever used one of these? I think they're fun to use. Let's fill this in. And I definitely want to get nice and dark and refined right in there because I think that's what's helping this pop. I haven't really used the 8 so much, have I? Maybe we want to push the darks a little bit with a little bit of the 8. And put a little bit of 8 here. This is 8B, by the way, when I'm calling it 8B. Just push the darks in a few places just so that they're just a smidgen darker. And blend them a little bit. And then same thing down here. This is where I want to push the darks a little bit more as well. Especially in here, Just go nice and dark. And then we'll blend that around. And I'm just going to clean this up a little bit. I feel like maybe I've lost my edge a bit. Okay. And let's just do a little bit more to this. All right, let's try not to lose too much lights in this particular leaf. Is that okay? I don't know. And then it's actually darker behind it. I could have gone darker with my background. Let's see if we can just darken it like so with our blending stomp. Let's just blend the background around a little bit. And then just be gentle on our little stems. Okay, that's really dumb what I did there. I totally lost my stem. It's a lighter stem, so let's try bringing it back. Like it's lighter on one side, right? It's darker on the bottom, so this is the top of the stem. And then it's down there, that dark area is the dark part of the stem. But I need to make it look believable because right now it looks kind of odd. Maybe we'll just put a little bit more dark in the background above it. Let's see if that fixes it. Makes it more understandable what's happening. Does that help? I think it still looks a little bit wonky. I'm just going to lift a little bit more out of here and put it back on again. I'm probably being overboard. I'm not sure if I'm being overboard or not. Sometimes when you're in it, you can't always tell. Am I being overboard or am I not? So that's a little more accurate to the shape that's in the photo, right? Okay. And this is I'm a little bit off here, but that's okay. I'm just going to do my best. I'm going to blend this around. And I'm going to use kind of that same motion that you can see that I did my little lines and creases in this little bud or flower with. Just kind of do this. And then I can always refine a little more after. How's that? Something like so. Everything's mushed together here. And if I look at the reference photo, the thing that's popping here is the darkness of this leaf above it. So let's refine this leaf, get a little bit darker. I think that's better. There's a nice vein in the middle of this. Kind of like so. I'm getting a little bit, maybe like that. Okay, let's just refine this a little bit. Doing a little bit of circular motion here, but I'm losing my detail. This is where if I wanted more detail, I could use one of the harder pencils. So rather than the dark pencils I was using, this might be a good time to have a lighter pencil and just do the detail with a lighter pencil and then not blend it quite so much. I think I've got a little darker than I'd like to there. So you know what, I'm just going to take the 2B pencil and refine these shapes a little bit more. And I might just kind of let them be what they are without as much blending. Let's see, I'll come along here and then it gets dark in here. I kind of think that would be okay to blend out in here. Oof, I'm really slopping my shapes, aren't I? Oh well, let's just do that. And refine it a little bit. You know what would help is to give this a little bit of background around it because the shape is really light. So you know what I could do? Kind of like outline, put background behind it that's a little bit darker. I know, I gotta fix that. You saw it. I'm losing stuff there. That's okay. I'm gonna come back in here. I'm just gonna use my blending stomp and create some background around this, and then I'll refine things because I'm kind of doing weird stuff. So I'm using kind of the side of the stomp, and I'm just kind of doing like the circular motion. Try this. I'm not loving what I did here. So you get to actually watch me fix something again. Again, you get to watch me fix something. That's okay. I'm just going to come in here and just keep blending a little bit more. This area is actually kind of light. And then I will use this and just kind of start lifting some of my lights out. And the other thing that you can use actually is a battery operated eraser. That can actually be really helpful for tiny, refined things that you want to lift. But let's just do this for now. And this area here is definitely still lighter as well. But it's lighter than the background, but it's darker than the rest of the petal. So I'll just dab that out and we'll kind of get that working for us in a minute. This is kind of got a dark halo. We don't want that. Our background actually could get a lot darker even than what we have it. I'm just not so sure I want to worry about that right now. I'm going to refine the shape a little bit using softer pressure. I do have my 6. You could use a 2B or something else instead of the 6B here. I'm just refining the edges and bringing it into the background. So basically I'm giving it a nice crisp edge, but coming into the background with my darkness. So it's really the background. I'm almost carving the background up to the flower, if that makes sense. So I'm gonna do a little bit of this, and then I can lift a little bit more out of the flower if I need to. I think I'm happier with that. And again, just refine things a little bit. Lift it with the kneadable eraser and drop some more of this in here. Yeah, I think that's okay. It's not perfect. That's okay. And then this, yes, this. Maybe I'll just do that with a light pencil. Let's just grab the HB. We could even grab the 2H if we wanted to, but you know what? We'll use the HB. Everybody has an HB. Okay, something like that. Yeah, that's okay. I am really being overly persnickety, seeing this as like an edge flower. It's not even that important, but okay, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put a little bit of detail of some kind in here. There's actually kind of some like little bud or flower petals back here. I'm just going to draw a few little things in here. Just basically doesn't have to be anything really. Just to create a little bit of shapes. Or darkness, just to kind of help things pop. I don't think having them exactly what you see in the photo is necessarily necessary, so I'm trying to keep things simple. And then I'll just blend this out just a little bit, because you can see those pencil lines are pretty bold still. Just do a little bit of blending. There we go. Okay, how's that? We could almost be darker down here, but you know what? Because it gets so dark, the bud gets so dark, I'm not going to worry about making the background as dark. And we have this nice light little petal, so we could go darker there, but because we're getting so close to the edge of the painting, we don't need the contrast by having a light and a dark, you know, popping. We almost don't need it right here, but down here I really don't think we do. So I'm not going to push my dark background too dark around this little petal here. I'm just going to go ahead and fill it in, blend it. And blend the little bud. Like so, maybe like so. I think I've gotten a little darker than I need to. I'll just lift a little bit. I think I gotta clean my blending stomp because I think I'm getting darker than I need. You know what? I can bring this up and kind of fade it into this shape a little bit more, like so. Okay, I'm trying to decide how much I want to refine this little petal here, because it's really not a make or break, I don't think, but it might need a little more contrast than what I have. I don't know. Not sure how much attention to give to this little petal. It's there, but it's like, you know, does it really matter? I don't know. Let's just get the background a little bit smoother looking around here. I might, you know, blend that into the background. We'll see. I can decide if I want to bring it forwards or not. I'm not sure that it's really adding to anything in terms of like making the painting better or the drawing better or whatever. We could just turn that into a leaf. Should we do that? Just turn it into a leaf? That's what I think I'm going to do. It can just be a dark leaf. All right, now I'll just blend this bud quickly. I think I will just speed the video up a little bit because I think this is getting boring and it's very redundant, right? So I will speed it up a little bit. Just gonna blend that out with the tissue really quickly. And I'm just gonna like almost over blend those background parts, and then I can kind of refine them by pulling things forward just a little bit, but I don't mind if things are a little bit blurred back there. I'm pretty much just repeating what I did by kind of pushing and pulling using my kneadable eraser when I want to get things a little bit lighter. I'm making things, again, always darker where the edges are meeting just so that I can kind of create the impression of depth. I'm just going to push the darks a little bit in these little leaves for the sepal. I'm just going to invent this one because it's not really there. Okay. Yeah, I'm not loving what I'm doing here totally, but this particular bud here is a lot darker. It's, or I could say blossom. It's more than a bud already. I'm going to just darken things quite a lot. I'm using the 8B pencil, but I will come in and get things a little bit more refined here in a minute. Just get this dark, and I think I can go a little bit darker here as well. And just do kind of in a linear way. And yeah, it's definitely dark on this whole section. Gets a little lighter as it comes up, but it's still, like I say, it's fairly dark. And let's maybe just lighten a touch along this top edge. Ooh, okay, I'm getting rid of my background accidentally. It's okay, we'll fix it. Refine this a little bit. There we go. I think I'm happier with that shape. I'll just kind of use the blending stump now and just darken things a little bit, blend things around. So I'm using, you can see that same motion that I did when I was drawing those little lines in there. Carry on doing that over here and just bring that all the way up to the top. And then the background actually does get, it is a smidgen darker back here, but I'll just put a little bit of our 6B pencil in the background. Just, I don't know if it's worth making it pop that much with the dark background here, but we might as well, since it is a smidgen bit darker just along the edge. It does, I would say it's darker in here, but along the top edge, it's the background, it's the darker value here. So just very lightly put a little bit of that in and just drag things a little bit this way. Okay, yeah, I'm happier with that. Just blend this. Again, blending it into the background. I can always use a Kleenex if I need to get it more refined. Or I should say more smooth. Okay. Yeah, when I step back, actually, I'm not minding it as much as when my head is right in it. I'm not loving what I've got here. I don't like the way I did the shapes there. So I think I'm just going to play with them really quickly. I'm going to lift them out. I think what I want to do is bring this shape just a little bit smaller over here. It can look more like a bud. And then this can be more like part of the same, same blossom back here. Does that make sense? So I'll just add another like sepal leaf. This is totally taking artistic license here. And then I will almost like make all of this just a little bit like it's more part of the same bud here. Does that make sense? So I just slightly change that shape. That's just kind of being maybe overly picky, but I don't know, something about it was just bothering me. Just blend that into the background a bit. Again, this isn't the focal point. It's just kind of a little bit there. I think I'm happier with that. I don't know, just the slight change of shapes. I'll just lift this a little bit. And let's do this kind of almost like a little bit more the way the creases and the folds could be in this if it was a bud or part of a blossom. Okay, finally those details you've been waiting for, right? All these little veins and little lines. So I'm just going to gently use my 2B and draw these in here. I'm not drawing them like super precise with the photo. I'm just kind of using the photo as a guide to remind myself, okay, this is the way the veins kind of branch out, kind of like trees coming out from the center of this flower. So kind of just taking artistic license, but using the reference photo as a guide just to see how these little veins kind of grow. And if you don't like how bold mine are, you definitely don't have to go as bold. It doesn't make or break or whatever the painting, because it's, I think the values is really what makes the painting stand. So these are just kind of an extra little nice detail to add at the end. Okay, I did something a little wonky there. It's okay. I just try and do something like so. I think I overdid them on that one, but you know what? I'm just going to use the cleaner blending stomp. I don't want to go really dark with this, but I'm just going to blend some of them out. I think I just went overboard. Is that better? I think so. Okay, this one, they're not as visible, kind of in the shadow, but I'll just add a few just very carefully. Yeah, not too many on this one. Could actually add a tiny little bit of shadow. I think the shadow is a little bit bolder than I've got. Let's push it a little bit more here. Yeah, something like that. And this one definitely has some nice veins in here, so we don't want to miss them. And like I say, not copying things exactly, just kind of using my reference as a guide. You can turn your page if you want to, rather than having to stretch across like I'm doing. I just find it easier to draw these on this way. Like I say, some of these almost overdoing it again. I think we're okay still. And then while I'm at it, I'm going to just do a few lines kind of just on top of this one, because I feel like it's kind of almost wanting to be part of the focal point. It's not quite. It's kind of like a supporting flower. So I'll just do a few gentle little lines and veins. You know what, I might take a darker pencil, maybe the 6 or the 8. I don't know. Let's see. And we'll just do a couple of veins because I can see them in there. Can't you? Yeah. That adds to this little flower. You know what, I think there's actually a separation in petals there. We could separate those out. That's kind of an extra. We could do that if we want to lighten that, like just go a little bit darker here to separate them. So I kind of drew that line, and then I'm pushing one of the petals behind, right? This little piece here, pushing it behind by the way I'm darkening where the edges are meeting. Kind of gives the impression that there's another petal there, because there is, and my shape isn't exactly perfect, but yeah, I'm happier with that. I think that kind of adds this little something, and just a little bit there. Should probably step back and assess it. Then I'll decide if I need to add anything else. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna just tweak these lines a little bit on this particular leaf. Just bring them up here a little bit. It doesn't quite look, no, it doesn't quite look right, but it's okay. I'm gonna put a little bit more shadow here. And I do have the 2B. I'm just being quite gentle at this point. And anywhere else? I don't know. This is pretty strong contrast, but I think I'll just let it be that way. And then I can kind of see it's a little bit, my shape here is different when I look at the color reference photo compared to, didn't catch everything maybe in the black and white version. I could kind of tweak this shape a little bit. I don't know if I really need to. It's not like a, let's just say I changed the shape of this leaf. Not minding it too much, but again, if you don't really care for what I did with my leaf, you can always, again, look at the reference photo. Yeah, something like that. I hope that this tutorial has brought a little taste of God's beauty and peace into your everyday life, that it's helped you understand values better, and that it will help transform your artwork so that you can continue enjoying your own creative journey. See you again soon. Bye!